Hello, welcome. This is the Resilient Rooster. I'm back with another Yu-Gi-Oh video, and today I'm going to be showcasing the Infernity Zefra version. Infernity Zefra is probably not as consistent as just regular Zefra, but I think it's like a little bit more fun. So basically, the objective of this deck is basically to abuse the Oracle of Zefra. Whenever you synchro summon using a Zefra as material, you can basically put any monster card on top of your deck, which is going to be the Archfiend, and draw it. So once we draw from Archfiend, we can basically go off. So this is my deck list right now. I feel like most of these stuff are necessary. I think that you really need Infernity break this format, since there's a lot of cards where it's just better to destroy it than to negate it. One thing I like about the Zefra is a lot of their cards are searchable, so it makes the deck a little bit easier to access different type of cards. But the bad part is some of the cards restrict you to pendulum summoning only certain archetypes. But I added the Dark Orb card, that way I can get a 0 scale easier and make my pendulum summon more free. So here I got the Stardust Charge Warrior so that I can add the Infernity Archfiend, and this is basically where the combo just plays itself out. I got my pendulum summon off, and I managed to get at least one negate from my Zefranu. And this is the part where the Archfiend engine, basically, or the Infernity engine, takes over. I get a lot of cool cards that basically add up to a big board. So I got the Void Ogre Dragon, and now I'm gonna just use my Infernity Launcher again. That way I could just start pumping out like at least more negates. So now I got the barrier, and one of the things that change is you're only allowed 3 back row basically. But I sort of cheated the system by getting the Raw and the High Paladin, that way I could get my Infernity Archfiend. And this second Archfiend basically helps out the combo a lot. And I got the 2 Infernity cards and make the Proxy Dragon, that way I can use my Firewall's effect to special summon from my hand. And I got my last negations, or my last disruption, which is the Infernity Break. So I have a Death for the Divine Strike, Infernity Barrier, Infernity Break, Void Ogre Dragon, and a Firewall Bounce. So my opponent had a pretty good hand. They had the Infernity, or not the Infernity, they had the Amano Awado. But I was able to stop them with the Infernity Break, and that's one of the reasons why I run that card, just so that I can out some problematic cards. And at this point, my opponent had like no answers and surrendered. This is one of the replays where I didn't open up a single field spell, so my plays slowed down a lot, but I did have basically my 2 scales that I needed. So I was getting ready to pendulum summon, so I sent the Zefranu to the extra deck, that way I could special summon it to my extra monster zone. And thanks to Zefranu, I was able to add the Zephyr Providence, and Zephyr Providence adds the field spell, and once I get the field spell, my combo starts to go off. I summoned the Electrum because I think Electrum's the easiest Link 2 that you can summon in this deck. And thanks to Stardust Charge Warrior, I was able to add my Archfiend, and Archfiend basically just starts the combo. So I made the Skull Dread. I drew to Oracle of Zefra, so I basically set it since I can't control any monsters when I try to use the Infernity Necromancer. And thanks to Archfiend, I got the Launcher, and this is basically where my plays start to form again. So that's pretty good. My Archfiend searches my Bishop or Patriot, and basically I get the Firewall, and this is where you try to get your disruptions. So I got another Necromancer, that way I can make the Proxy Dragon so I can get at least 2 bounces. But I wanted more than 2 bounces, so I basically used my Firewall's effect to special summon from my hand, but I had to get rid of my Skull Dread. But I think it was worth it because I was able to get a bigger field. I got the Crystal Wing, which is protected to my Proxy Dragon, so if anything happens, I can get rid of my Firewall Dragon to protect my Crystal Wing. And I think this field is pretty decent. I have the Archfiend to basically break and barrier. So that was pretty cool. And if they use any monster effects, I can basically use Crystal Wing. So this has like a lot of cool disruptions. But they were able to basically kaiju my Crystal Wing, but it ended up hurting them because I was able to use their Waterfront. And thanks to the Waterfront, I could remove 2 counters and just summon a token. And with the token, it helps me just kill them even faster. So I basically just went to the battle phase and just attacked. Whenever you're playing the Infernity Zefra, you don't want to draw too many Infernity cards because it'll just brick, since you can't really pendulum summon them all out unless you have the Zero Gate and the Zefra. And this is one of the cases where I had both, so it was kind of okay. And if you do have the Infernity Zefra cards, the best one to have is the Beetle, because Beetle is your tuner and it starts out a lot of plays. Since you can tribute it to summon 2, it makes it a lot easier to just synchro summon. So right now I got the Archfiend, and basically this is where the combo starts. I'm basically doing the same combo as I did in the other duels, and at this point I just want to keep using my launcher, so I'm gonna basically make the Paladin to get it back and just start making more negates. My next goal is basically to make the Void Ogre Dragon, and this board is kind of decent. It basically has 2 Beat Sticks monsters, and then it has the Break, the Barrier, and the Zephyr Divine Strike. So all in all, this is a very good field, since I can basically just stop everything my opponent tries to do. They did have a lot of starting cards, but I was able to negate everything, and they basically had no more resource left, and they surrender, I believe. I don't think that this deck will see any meta relevancy, because this deck sort of requires a lot of things. It requires you to have the field spell, a random level 4 Zefra, and a tuner. But if you have all 3, you can make some cool boards. And this is one of the duels where I didn't have a level 4 Zefra or the field spell, but I was able to maneuver, and I managed to get or find a way to get to the pieces that I needed. So once I get into the Stardust Charge Warrior, it basically starts my play. I get the Archfiend, and everything just works out. So basically, if you get hand trap, you sort of kind of lose some of the momentum, and your board will be lackluster. But fortunately for me, that didn't happen in some of these duels, and I was able to pull off some kind of cool things. And here, I probably should have added the Zefra Break or the Infernity Break, and it would have been a decent board. But I made Trigate here for like no reason. I think it'd be better if this was just a Proxy Dragon. In the end, I took out the Trigate Wizard because I don't think you can make it with 3 materials or 3 co-links. But this board was kind of decent. I had the Firewall, the Void Ogre Dragon, the Break, and the Barrier. So this is kind of a cool thing just to see. So I was able to bounce, use the Infernity Break to destroy, and my opponent basically had no plays. So this is like enough just to attack for a game. This will be like the final duel, and in this duel I'll be going second. So you get to see how well this deck fares going second. My opponent had the Agent of Creation Venus, so that means that they'll have like an auto link for her, and you get to see how well this deck can actually fare. So in this deck, I don't run any hand traps, so I can't really stop my opponent. It'll just be brute strength to see if I could just break their board. I would say like this deck probably bricked maybe once every 3 games or so. You might just draw too many Infinity cards, but if that happens, what can you do, right? But if you do draw too many Zefra cards and you don't have a tuner, I guess you could just probably just play the Zefra engine part itself, and hopefully Electrum can get you to what you need, because Electrum is still a good card in the long run, and it can get you a lot of advantage if you use it correctly. So my opponent here, they basically have a pretty decent board. They basically have the Firewall, and they have the Herald of Orange Light, so they basically have 2 sort of disruption. So I get to go first, and I think that if they basically negated my Dark Form, I probably would have been able to do much. But fortunately, they let that go through, and I was able to push a little bit harder. I was able to basically Pendulum Summon for, I think, 5 maybe? 3, 4, nope, just 4. And this was kind of just cool to see all these chain links happening, and it kind of made like the Herald miss timing, which was quite fortunate. They did bounce a lot of my cards back, so I didn't have a lot to go off on, but since I have access to the Stardust Charge Warrior, I would just make it, and they can't negate it thanks to Orc of Zevral being Chainlink 3. And the bad part though is my Infernity Archfiend missed timing because the Skull Dread resolved last, so it was kind of bad. And this is the part where I forgot that they basically had the Herald in hand, and I totally forgot about that, and I couldn't do much, so I just surrendered. So that's it for the replays. If you enjoy it, please click the like button. If you want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh content, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.